in the zipper
I
closet.
was just gonna say, you gotta get in the zipper.
You need a whistle.
Is the secretary ready?
Secretary has got notes ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
Would be 10:01.
10:01 now.
We'll
Well,
get official.
I can't tell, I'm at an angle. I'll trust you. So I'd like to welcome Representative Harvey, who's a member of the Fish and Game Committee in the House. Thank you for making the drive down.
Yeah.
Thank you for your input in the meeting minutes. I did hand out a corrected copy after I talked to Mark Lucas. The last paragraph, it should have been district, not district court, but superior court, so that was the only change. And then Ray had pointed out that he was opposed to the last motion. That was changed. And then Megan cut a typo on the actual numbers for the FISs. So all those corrections have been made.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
Thank you. All right, we're going to turn it over to Marty.
Well, let's get the quick and easy stuff out of the way first. We got a couple of rules that are being presented to you. It's in the packet that starts with legislation and rules update. And so there's the legislation and rules update, then there's the LSR list, then there's the list of retained bills, and then there is a draft initial proposal of some hunting rules, wildlife rules, that will need approval for next month. But I'm just presenting them to you for this month for your review over the next month, and then you can vote on them next month. And at the very end, the last page, are the special youth hunting days for deer and turkey that you were presented last month, and I need commission, I think it's council, whatever, to vote on. So if you want to vote on those, the FIS 1204 and FIS 1204.02 and FIS 1204.03, the last page in the packet that I gave you.
I'll make a motion to support the proposed changes. if I can
There's no
say.
substantial changes, it's just some clarification where we say, instead of youth shall be under 16, we said youth shall be 15 or younger to make it clear. Added the link to the special deer and bear tag. And FIS 1204.03A, there was no need to reference what happened the first weekend in 2018, so we just deleted that, because that's obsolete. Updated the references on the last paragraph. It's just real, housekeeping stuff. They were expiring, so we had to readopt them.
I'll make a motion to accept for purposes of discussion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Anybody have any comment? We'll take a few minutes just to review it.
I have a question. And Dan, I might ask you this if I could, please. And I'm just curious, with respect to the youth hunting days of the year, I know that it's a weekend hunt. And I'm just curious in general, has there ever been any general discussion about extending that 2-day period? And I would just use as an example, in the southeast corner of the state, okay, in that management area, because we do issue extra permits.
Yep.
Okay, for hunters, they can basically ask for them and get them. Is there an opportunity for youth hunters in that section of the state to have an extended bit of a season? I'm just curious.
I mean, there's certainly opportunity. We've never discussed it. It's actually never been brought up. I don't recall ever getting a comment for anyone asking for an extension on the youth weekend. But that's not to say we couldn't look into it, but because there's never been any comments on it, we've never really discussed it.
Some states do have 2 youth weekends
Yeah.
sequentially.
I think that's correct, yes, I think, but I just, thinking about this and the opportunity
Yep.
for the youth community, if you will, and knowing that, you know, the desire from a management perspective
Yep.
to take a few additional year in that management unit, if you will. I was just wondering if it had ever been taken to the table.
Yeah, no, we've never discussed it. Again, it's never come up, but certainly something we'd be happy to look into. See what other states are doing around us, how it works for them. I would suggest that maybe we would do it when we go around again and do the full kind of biennial rulemaking. Because typically that's when people are kind of keyed into that stuff. And
Right.
but yeah, I mean, certainly something we could look into, but we haven't discussed it in the past.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? No motion on the floor to adopt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. Okay, now you want to jump into the pack of rules?
Yeah, Bill, Liz.
Bills, I'm going
So Marty tells me that she has copied these bills that are clipped, in the order that the LSR table, the one with the little bit yellow highlighting, so that's the order we're gonna go in today. But she's gonna transition to the bill spreadsheet now that we've got bills, after today. But just for today, we're gonna follow the order on the sheet for discussion. So, the first one is House Bill 102, relative to fee for records under the right to know law. I make a motion to support for purpose of discussion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Marty?
Okay. This bill establishes parameters for when a public body may charge a fee for records provided under RSA 91A. So it authorizes agencies to be able to charge up to $25 per hour for employee time after 10 hours of work. So, I think the idea is to help compensate for the time that employees spend doing right-to-know, massive right-to-know requests. If they're simple and little, in less than 10 hours of employee work, there's no additional charge. But if, like, we've had some that took months for us to get all the stuff together, so this would allow us to charge the person, the requester, $25 per hour for the employee's time, if it passes.
Marty, would this apply to litigation, discovery?
Would
That's-
this be what?
Would this apply to discovery in litigation? I wouldn't think
No,
so.
it's the right to know.
So the
this is
recent
a-
case where staff was repeatedly requested to produce for the
That's
administrative
a
hearing.
totally separate
Yeah,
statute.
this would not apply to that.
Right,
Okay.
this is under the RSA 91A, and the staff is recommending support.
In my pre-retirement life, I used a variety of federal and state right-to-know laws, and most of the time, the cost, it was correct, it was minimal. Or you paid, like at the DES, you paid per page. They have a staff, and it's like 3 people, and they bring you the file, and you look through the file, and then you pay for the copies. So there's already some cost recovery on that with some of the agencies. But I could see, there were times when, in my business, we would occupy quite a bit of staff time. And I don't think that's unfair. Most of those larger requests, I'm going to assume, come from businesses. They're not personal requests, private citizen requests. So I would like to support this.
Madam Chair,
So this says if it's under 10 hours, if it takes us less than 10 hours to look up this information, we can't charge them anything?
Not for employees'
No,
time.
not for the
We
time.
can still charge 10 cents a page for any hard copies. But if we're taking less than 10 hours to compile things and to ship them off, we can also charge for postage if we're mailing it. But yeah, not for employees' time. This would be just for employees' time, if we were spending more than 10 hours compiling information for a right to know request.
So if it took you 9.5 hours to look for one piece of paper that this person wants, you wouldn't charge them anything?
I couldn't, well, right now, I can't charge them for anything no matter how much time I spend.
You can charge them for one copy, right?
If I need to make a hard copy. We try to go with electronic copies because then we don't have to worry about trying to collect money. And it's quicker for us if we can just send it electronically.
Just seems like charging, period, but,
Well, it does, but right now we can't.
yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion? John, you look like you're thinking.
Well, I am, actually, thank you for catching that.
I didn't want to say sleeping.
No, but you get to be my age, you don't ever sleep, trust me. I'm okay with what discussion we had in the explanation.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Having heard 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to the next one, this is HB 1562, relative to personal watercraft. The staff is recommending we remove this from our tracking list because all it does is changes the term ski craft to personal watercraft. It's really just housekeeping.
Do I even need a motion, Mr. Chairman, for that?
We just want to, we're just
We're gonna
letting you know
discuss
that
it.
we want to
Yeah.
remove it.
That's what I was twisted last time.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's just put a big X through it.
Okay.
Unless somebody objects, then we can talk about it.
Then HB 1100, relative to coyote hunting, provides for prohibiting hunting coyote during
What
certain...
happened on 1502? Did we vote to remove or change?
1562?
I mean, 1562.
We just decided to not look at it.
Remember, we're not taking votes of no position.
Okay.
If you want to discuss
Yeah,
it,
that-
make a motion.
I'm concerned on some of the language on it and the effect of it.
Okay.
Let's make a motion.
All right, you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'm going to make a motion to support it.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, do I need a second?
Room for discussion.
For
I'll
discussion.
second it. for
Thank you.
that.
Was removing the term ski craft
And replacing it
on
with...
navigation of state waters and define such craft as personal watercraft. Does that mean now a ski boat, somebody out water skiing, that's gonna be now defined as a personal watercraft?
Well, there's also the definition for personal watercraft that used to be the definition in RSA 270:74-C. They're just moving that definition to replace the definition for ski craft. And it's personal watercraft means a motorboat 16 feet or less in length that is propelled by a jet pump, not propellers, where the operator and riders stand, kneel, straddle, or sit on rather than inside the craft. So no, a ski boat would not be a personal watercraft. Unless you had really long legs.
And I think some of the manufacturers have brought out some kind of different products the last several years. And I think this is trying to simplify the definition. I noticed they did increase the length and they took the speed limit off. If you know, you own a boat, 20 miles an hour on a boat is actually quite fast. You know what I'm saying? That boat's moving along on the water pretty well. So I think this is gonna basically capture any capable, whatever the propulsion is, as long as it's jet propulsion and you sit on top of it. I think it's just cleaning it up. I don't even know why you would have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in there in the first place. They all go over that.
And the staff is recommending we remove it from the list, that's all. We're not recommending, it does not impact Fish and Game. So we're recommending removal from the list.
I just wanted more clarification on it.
Okay?
If you withdraw your motion,
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Withdraw my second.
Thank you.
Alrighty, now moving on to HB 1100, relative to coyote hunting. This bill prohibits hunting coyote during pup rearing season, if you will, from between April 1st to July 31st. And the staff is recommending oppose it because we really want to keep setting seasons in rules like we do with all our other game animals.
I make a motion to oppose.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1002,
No, 1100.
I'm sorry, 1100, I've got that one up in my stack. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1100, please vote aye.
Do we have a recommendation from the department?
She just said what
Oh,
opposed.
sorry.
I missed that. Okay, thank you.
So the recommendation is to
Oppose.
oppose and to keep all game management relative to hunting season in the rulemaking process, gives us flexibility. Can I have a second?
We already seconded
Then we
it.
have a second, thank
You already
you.
took a vote.
Call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Already, then we go on to 1324. Oh, no, sorry, got two copies of 1100. I want to make sure we saw it, I guess. HB 1424 relative to pistols for taking game. This bill makes changes to the caliber of pistol that may be used to lawfully take deer. And stipulates that it can be any 38/357 Magnum or greater, instead of the way it's currently written in statute where it lists out the specific pistols, sizes and names. And the staff is recommending oppose because we feel that the 38 is a little too small
You think?
to what did you humanely,
ethically harvest the
take
game
down
animal.
here.
I'll make a motion, we support staff and oppose it.
I'll second. Colonel? Yep. Some comments for us?
We're trying to get him, with not a lot of success, we're trying to get him to write something that covers foot-pounds, so we can do it once and be done with it, rather than trying to include every caliber every year that's created. He's gonna be very busy, he's gonna have to file every year to do that. So we're trying to convince him to do a level foot-pounds, feet per second, that the
Yeah.
round is going out. We don't care what caliber it is, and at this point, he's not changed it, so we would vote to, after talking with Dan at length, we would not be able to support this.
I did speak with Representative Blaine last evening, and he reiterated that conversation, so I think we'll see a change and
Good.
an amendment at the opening house, but for now, I think we'll just go on the record of opposing. Any further discussion? I'm waiting for the ballistics expert.
No, I would just say I would appreciate those further conversations that the Colonel's having with Spillane, because I get a lot of questions relative to this down in the shotgun area of the state, along with some of the other ones coming through. It creates a lot of confusion. Yes, it's black and white, but then it's, why isn't this? Why isn't this? Because this is more effective than that. So I welcome and would appreciate some simplification and clarification.
And I'm a little concerned as an agency. I don't want us to lead the charge for overturning this in some of these shotgun towns. I think that's what would like to have us do, to take the lead on that. I'm concerned about that because the towns put these in because of safety. I don't want to be the person saying, frankly, muzzleloaders are traveling as fast and far as a rifle. So this legislation is dated now, but I don't want to be the lead on that. So the only thing we're entering an opinion on is when he gets to a caliber that's too light to effectively harvest an animal.
Yeah, I think we just have to wait and see what he presents at the committee hearing. Any further comments?
If I might, is there any way to move the discussion towards a real, I'll just make a one-word general statement, an energy discussion with respect to a bullet that leaves a firearm, and we could go way down a rabbit hole, and you could talk about a 44 Magnum that comes out of an 8-inch handgun versus a 44 Magnum that leaves a 20-inch rifle barrel,
Yeah,
okay?
lots of-
Two different things,
Yeah.
but I mean, all right, so as much as Spillane maybe does not want to engage in that discussion, it would almost seem that the data is all out there. We all know that, and somehow if that could be codified so that it could be discussed from the standpoint of energy delivered at a distance, that seems to me that would make it much easier to have a discussion. And I don't know if he needs to have a sit down with someone who's a qualified armorer, okay, or someone with that is an instructor in reloading, and someone that can quote and print and deliver a ballistics table. It would seem to me, I think the black and white is there. For some reason, he chooses to not want to pay attention to it. So.
Yeah, one thing I think that makes sense, like practically, for, determining what weapons are effective at ethically harvesting an animal. Part of the problem with doing it that way is gonna be enforceability, right? Because if you're doing it based on, foot-pounds of energy coming out of the muzzle, say you have somebody that loads their own rounds, how do you, each round could be loaded slightly differently. If they're right there on the cusp of things, are we gonna be having the officers throw them through a chronograph? If you bought I'm not even sure, feet per second's probably on there, but again, like you point out, depending on what, how long the barrel is.
It does change.
It gets tricky for enforcement. It would certainly be easier to say, okay, I bought this ammo and this is the feet per second, but when you start getting into people who load their own ammo, that would get tricky for enforcement.
Yeah, you have the lineman's manual to refer the recipe for it, but, I know shotguns, everything feet per second is 8 feet off the muzzle.
Right.
So, I don't know how they do it for handgun.
Yeah.
It would make more sense to have a standard, refer to a standard organization like Yancey or whoever's,
Yeah, I think and you may be able to do it that way, just the devil's in the details in terms of, just so that you have something specific enough so that law can make a case on it. Of course, I'd be willing to bet, as long as most people were using relatively good-sized calibers, you wouldn't be even looking into it unless they were kind of on the lower edge and you were concerned that they were, beneath whatever that lower limit is. Which most people don't hunt with those rounds anyway.
Well, if you go to Walmart and buy a box of Winchester 223, it's got a deer on there, it says deer and antelope. I would never personally, I know it's legal, I would personally never use a 223 on a deer. So, yeah, I see your point.
Yeah.
But I think we just wait, oppose it, we just wait and see what Representative Splain presents as an amendment that appears to be in the works. All those in favor of supporting staff, with a vote of oppose?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to say right quickly, we've got 2 pages of LSRs to get through. We've been at this for 25 minutes and gotten through 4. So we probably need to,
I'll take some blame for that.
yeah, limit our discussion a little bit.
So,
and just
so Marty,
stick
if I may, I appreciate you keeping us on time. Typically, we do and have scheduled other meetings. What I think we're trying to do, I know I'm trying to do, is help you all also understand the why we say no. Because when it comes to kind of game day and there's a decision that has to be made, if you understand why we took a position, then those game day decisions can be made and understand the commission's perspective. So I will try to speed it up, but I think I don't want to cut short the important conversation of the why behind those.
Yeah, that's an important point, and also, my reason for calling Representative Swain last night was to talk about the schedule. And I informed him, he said, I'm not gonna schedule any in-house meetings, committee meetings before the 16th. I said, well, it would really help if you could move that to the 23rd. They've got their room on Tuesdays, because that would give us another commission meeting. So he has agreed not to schedule any fishing game house to, prior to the 23rd. So we can expect something on the 23rd, most likely. And he expects 2 days of hearing, and anything that could be exact same day, he's going to executive day to keep things moving along. Minimize trips to Concord, basically. So, and we may have another, if we can't get through this today, you know, we'll call another meeting, probably after the first of the year, because the holiday's gonna get in the way. But we have time relative to the house, what we're expecting out of the house schedule. If we don't get through this list today. Don't worry.
Well, I'm just, the House by rules gives a 4-day notice of hearing scheduled.
Yeah,
And not everything's gonna go to fishing game
yeah,
that we're following.
that's true.
So moving along, HB 1116, relative to certain firearms to be used for taking a game. This is the bill that allows for the use of rifles and certain pistols. It modifies the same statute as the previous bill, and this is allowing for straight-walled pistol cartridges, 38/357 Magnum or greater. And the staff
Repeat the
is,
same discussion.
yeah, basically. The staff is recommending again oppose.
Making a motion to oppose.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have
Take over.
HB 1143, including control of cyanobacteria blooms under the New Hampshire Clean Lakes Program. This bill requires the Department DES to provide remedial actions for cyanobacteria blooms under the New Hampshire Clean Lakes Program with or without consultation of Fish and Game. The staff is recommending to oppose it.
I make a motion to support staff and oppose this.
Second.
Commissioner DeRosa sat in for me on the LMAC committee, and he told me prior to this meeting that they spent a lot of time on cyanobacteria. So do you want to, should we save that for the main meeting, report on LMAC? Would you like to have some input?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, they're talking about shifting the advisory committee to only focus on that for the safe vehicle foreseeable future, and everything falls under that, so septic, everything. But they're gonna concentrate the entire advisory committee to work on.
Okay. My big issue, I'm in Molten Grove, and our town approved $60,000 last year for a cyanobacteria study on Lake Conococheague. And not one nitrate test was taken out of that nobody wants to replace their failed septic. That's where a lot of this is coming from, followed by the chem lawn, everybody wants nice grass down to the lake, followed by the geese that come to eat the nice grass down by the lake and defecate in the lake and contribute to cyanobacteria. I think these are solvable problems. I don't like the fact that we keep getting marginalized as a department with the DES. We saw this on the loon issue, there's a retained bill, giving the executive director another responsibility, perhaps, that we have no funding for and no way to enforce. So I very much oppose this. Primarily because I don't think they're going to solve the problem until they make people replace their septics. Should I call a vote?
Yeah.
Do you think we move on? All those in favor of supporting staff with opposing House
Sorry,
Bill 1143?
Susan, I have a question. You said this is the recommendation that came from a work group?
No. This is the, I know prior that LMAC had no input into this bill. There was no vote taken. The advisory committee did not develop this bill.
And they are not going to take a position on it?
Well, they will, because, but it will happen at the next meeting, which will be in January.
What's the date in January, do you know?
They haven't called it yet. But I have seen this trend with the DES over time, trying to usurp the authority of Fish and Game. I think this is another example of it. Any further questions? All those in favor of supporting staff and opposing House Bill
Sorry,
1143?
I'm processing what you said, I'm not trying to delay it. Would it make sense to wait until the LMAC takes a position and they have feedback on that? We're not required to get recommendations from them on bills, are we?
No, that is DES. So we are a voting member on the advisory committee, but this is an example of why we do not volunteer for the legislative committee, because we can have differences of opinion with LMAC and Fish and Game.
And staff's recommendation was to
Opposed. Mostly because of the new last section that says, notwithstanding any law or interagency agreement to the contrary, the department, meaning DES, recommendation to use chemical applications or physical treatments shall be made in consultation with the Fish and Game Department and shall be implemented with or without the concurrence of the Department of Fish and
Okay,
Game.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of supporting staff and opposing House Bill 1143, please vote aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Aye.
All right, next one is HB 1148, relative to the Fish and Game Commission. This bill makes changes to the Fish and Game Commission, including notice of appointment qualifications, misconduct, and removal from office. Staff gently recommends opposed, but it is totally up to y'all.
Thank you. I make a motion that we oppose House Bill 1148. A second, please.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, are you going to allow public comment later?
No,
Okay, thank
we generally don't, only if we have information, like we're trying to seek additional information.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to comment on some of it.
Okay,
In section 1, it says that whenever an appointment is made to the commission, the governmental cause to be published the names of the nominee in the newspaper of statewide daily circulation, which is already being done. And then it says, and in the minutes of the council meeting in which the nomination was announced, the executive director shall announce the name of the nominee at the commission meeting immediately following the nomination, and shall also publish the name of the nominee on the department's website or the persons under consideration. That is basically all handled through Governor and Executive Council. Fish and Game and this commission don't get involved in who is coming on or being nominated as a commissioner. I think just in that paragraph alone, now we're throwing more of the burden to Fish and Game and to the director on making sure that he follows, that the governor's office gives the director of Fish and Game the information, and then they publish it on our website. So it sounds like a lot of extra work on something on Fish and Game or the commission where this is already done through the governor's office. We've never been involved in who comes on as a commissioner.
I agree with you, Ray, and also that is the standard procedure for all nominees through, once the governor nominates someone, the executive council is responsible for, between the governor's office and the executive council, and this would be inconsistent, across state government to have that. Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of opposing, please say aye.
All right.
Aye. Thank you.
The next one is HB 1515 relative to the Meals and Rooms tax rate. The staff recommends we remove this from the list because it changes the Meals and Rooms tax rate to 7.5% and stipulates a minimum that will go to the towns. It does not impact Fish and Game. We recommend removing this from the list.
I agree.
Thank you. The next is CACR 15. Is it concurrent amendment, constitutional amendment concurrent resolution, meaning that if this does pass both chambers and is signed by the governor, it will go on a ballot for the towns to vote on to change, in order to change the constitution. But this change would provide that a 2/3 vote is required to pass any legislation that would impose new or increased taxes or fees, or to authorize the issuance of state bonds and provide that the general court shall appropriate funds for payment of interest and installments. It'll put the question to the state voters if it passes the legislature. Staff is recommending opposed.
I make a motion that we support staff on opposed constitutional amendment concurrent resolution 15.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. Having served on Ways and Means as a legislator, this would absolutely tie not only Fish and Game, but state government up quite a bit. I don't think it's a good idea, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
I would like to point out that this is a priority of House leadership this year. So it will be, we will create some angst by not supporting our position. But it will have a profound impact if it passes. It will have a profound impact on our ability to raise fees.
That has, I just don't see it having any support in the Senate.
So, Scott, could you help me understand that comment a little better? It'll have a profound effect on our ability to change.
Most of the time, the legislature has authorized us to change fees through rulemaking. This would require a 2/3 vote by the legislature for us to increase fees.
What was staff's recommendation again?
I'm sorry,
What was staff's recommendation again?
opposed. And keep in mind, this would exist, passage by this legislation would just mean it would go on the ballots for the town, and then the towns vote on it.
But that also creates a time delay too.
It's
Even if
not
it passed,
time
it
delay, yeah.
would be- Any further discussion? All those in, also, no, I have a motion on the floor, I'll call a vote.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
this is a referendum vote, is it not? This sounds like, New Hampshire's not a referendum state.
You're right.
This sounds just like it's a referendum vote, because the towns and cities get to vote whether they approve what this passes or not. I mean, this,
Because
Well-
it's a constitutional amendment.
yeah.
Yeah, it's.
But we're not a referendum state. New Hampshire's not.
I see what you're saying, it's gonna turn us into a referendum state relative to taxation.
This one will, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna dip my toe in the water of a referendum state. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of supporting staff and opposing constitutional amendment, concurrent resolution 15, please say aye. Thank you. Aye.
HB 1304 is relative to vessel registration and boat fee decals. Since we had such an issue last year that they discovered that we should not be collecting boat fees or the boat registration fees, they changed it, basically calling them decal fees. So registration fees collected by the state will now be called decal fees instead of registration fees, so that we're not in conflict with the U.S. Coast Guard.
We don't have a position on it, but this is a bill that I feel strongly should be monitored by the commission. So what's going on is, this is a state bill that will create a state solution. At the same time, Senator Shaheen is in the process of introducing legislation at the federal level that would create a federal solution that I think would be better for all states that are impacted by this new interpretation of the Coast Guard regulations. It's been my understanding that Coast Guard is not willing to reinterpret the regulations, so the senator is starting to look towards moving forward with this new bill that would allow us to maintain the current system that we're working on. If the current interpretation of the Coast Guard regulations are enforced, we will be, it's probably going to be about a $3 extra fee that'll go to motor vehicle in order to create a second stamp. We'll go back, and I think most everybody here remembers the old days when we had 2 stamps on our boats, one from the Coast Guard, one from the state of New Hampshire, and that's what's going to end up happening. And it's just my opinion that we need more money in the boat access fund, and, you know, sending an over motor vehicle instead of trying to get more money in the boat access fund is a mistake. And sportsmen and boat owners are only willing to pay so much. I think we need to monitor it, but I think we're gonna need some flexibility, and we will be back in touch with you folks as this develops. Federal legislation is probably 2 years out. The question is that Marine Patrol is under the, thank you. One of my senior moments, I never get that Marine Patrol. They're under the gun, under their audit, because the Coast Guard's saying that the New Hampshire registration rules are illegal under Coast Guard regulations. So they gotta figure out how long the Coast Guard will allow them to be out of compliance, because we wouldn't wanna see their federal funding put in jeopardy any more than we wanna put our federal funding in jeopardy. So there's a lot of moving parts here still, but I do think it's a very important thing for New Hampshire sportsmen, so I know it goes against the grain, but I think this one ought to be left on your list, and we should be reporting out to you as this thing develops.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion to take position. Unless there's further discussion.
You didn't have a motion.
I thought, a motion for purpose of discussion.
I would still like to discuss.
Okay.
Do we have motions on the table to?
We did.
Discuss, okay. So if this does go through, then $1 for each registration that goes to Fish and Game Search and Rescue is removed. So we would lose money.
Right, we have two funds that are funded through this. One is $1 for search and rescue, and the other is a $5 boat access fee. So what the state's trying to do would be to create a state, what'll end up being is a second registration fee, new stamp, and then it will collect the $6 through there. It'll be a separate program.
So we typically monitor or don't take positions on bills that don't directly affect us, and this directly affects
Correct.
us. So to not take a position on something that takes away, do we know how many dollars in total that we get from this?
I don't have a figure in front of me. All I'm suggesting is that it's a little premature at this point to take a position.
As far as fiscal impact, because what it's basically doing is what we're getting now from boat registration, we would get from boat decal fees. So it for fiscal impact, basically a wash. We're losing it from the registration, but putting it in the new boat decal fee.
I wonder if we should entertain increasing the boat decal fee to help the boat access fund. That's what we should be trying to do.
No, that's totally different, that's not what this is.
Well, no, there's a number in there, and I'm just saying perhaps that's what we should do is try to increase it.
That way we can close it.
Yeah. Just a thought.
So, okay.
I know they've put together a group, they've had Fish and Game, DES, Marine Patrol, who are the folks from the?
Coast Guard.
Well, yeah, but no, in-state, what's the?
Port Authority.
Port Authority. And these are all the agencies that take money out of the boat registration fee right now. And there are a lot of issues with boat registrations, and Marine Patrol is trying to suggest that they would like to just fix this problem without trying to solve the other problems with boat registration fees. One of the side things is that, we have towns that register boats that don't have water on them. There are towns that receive hundreds of thousands of dollars in boat registration fee because they have a dealership, but they don't actually have a place to put the boat. So there are some inequities in our boat registration fee that at some point does need to really be addressed.
So you're suggesting we don't.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of inequities in this thing that maybe, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but keep in mind, this commission 2 years ago said we either in favor or opposed, we don't monitor. That has yet to be changed.
No, we're not monitoring, the staff is monitoring, we're not taking a position.
Well, I think we should take a position on this with a reason. I have a tendency to say I'm opposed. And didn't we do away with opposed as written? But boy, I'd love to say opposed as written right now, but we did away with that.
The comment, you said that Shaheen's bill goes through, this would not be needed.
Correct.
So
But
we could just assume it won't go through, well, how would we vote? I mean, the federal stuff is out of our control and the timelines.
Right.
We
No,
can't rely on it.
I'm inclined to support it because it temporarily takes care of the problem. And we don't know if, the federal change is going to come through. We just never know.
So
I think that's what I mean on this is, there's a lot of issues in here that should get corrected, that you gotta start somewhere to correct it.
My big thing is the fee itself.
Susan, I'm with you, if it says $3, I want Fish and Game to get $5, but, I think we need to
Yes,
start
sir.
somewhere.
You need to either have a support or opposed motion
Right.
from your committee, or when it comes up to the commission, I will request that. We can done away with monitoring,
Yeah,
support is written and all this, yes, we either support or we oppose.
I agree. I will make a motion that, we don't have a motion on the table.
You said
No,
you had
she's
a motion to
monitoring.
discuss, but. we
Motion to
didn't-
discuss.
Yeah, I don't know if we can. second.
I'll make a motion to support it.
All right.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Okay.
Discussion.
Yeah, no, we're still discussing and taking clarifying motions. So staff recommended monitor.
But we're taking a vote on,
We are, yeah. So as it's written, can you support it?
I don't believe it's the best solution that's available to us. What I would like to see happen is that the, you know, of course, we haven't had discussions with the committee yet, but we can maybe potentially discuss with the committee, about tabling this issue and putting it off to push it down the road for a year. But Shaheen needs more time at the federal level to decide what he can and can't do. And that's what I mean by not being quite ready. But if the commission wants to support or oppose only structure, then I would recommend that we take it off your list at this point. I would say we don't want to oppose it to answer your question, because the solution then that will be forced onto us will be motor vehicle just won't collect the fee for us. Because that will be the solution if they decide. And then we'll lose the funding for both access as well as rescue.
And we, like we talked earlier, we can take a position with comments, and I think Commissioner Green was also talking about that. So we could say, you know, the vote is to support, but if it came up to table or whatnot, we would support that direction. But everything in here, I think to support so that we don't lose the funding that we're getting would be important.
I like your thinking, yeah, I also don't think it would look good for the department not to support trying to solve this stopgap measure that could interrupt funding to the department.
Is there an amendment that you know of that's coming? No?
I must say it's creative, just call it a different name and put a different sticker over the vote.
That's all the question.
Thank you. All those in favor of supporting House Bill 1304 FM local, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay. 1558, relative to agent fees for Fish and Game licenses. This bill raises the fee collected by a Fish and Game agent for each type of license issued on a license form. The staff is recommending oppose. So right now, a registration agent, now this is like their part of their business operations. They can charge up to $5 for registering.
No.
Okay, good.
No, they get $1 per license type.
Yeah, 3 is what they want to go.
They want to go to 3 per license type.
All right.
I'll make a motion to support staff to oppose House Bill 1558 for the purposes of discussion.
I'll support it. Second.
Thank you. I think because I spend a lot of time at the Tufton Borough General Store, where they still have an old-fashioned scale, I think that this is in response to probably the online, loss of some revenue from online registration.
This actually comes from one store in Bristol. Yeah.
Newfound Trading,
What's that?
Newfound Trading Post?
That I don't know the name of the store. But they have approached 2 different representatives to put this in. The
You
first
know what, I think it
representative
is.
decided not to, and then this one did. their complaint is that they lose money on it, which is basically what everybody knows they're gonna be doing with selling licenses, but everybody knows that selling licenses brings folks into the store. Once again, I question the wisdom of increasing the cost to sportsmen without it benefiting the department. As we look down the road and into the future, online is gonna be more, every year we're gonna be selling more and more licenses online, less and less vis-a-vis store.
So with what the director just said, we sell close to 65% of our licenses online. So this type of an increase, all those funds would just go to our online vendor for the most part. 65% of those funds. Because our online vendor gets the same agent fee.
I find it funny that Representative Osborne's a supporter on this. When you get a constitutional amendment to not allow for this to
Not a lot
happen,
of fees.
but he supported this one.
Is there anything to prevent somebody from charging this now? Do we have a prohibition when charging to put the deer or the bear up on the scale?
That's a different issue, this is for
That's
selling
different.
licenses.
No,
No,
at the end.
it's part of the
No,
bill.
at the very end.
The
It's
registration
about putting
station, they
it on
charge
the
an
scale.
additional fee of up to $5 for small game and $10 for large game for the use of scales at the registration station.
So they can get $5 for a turkey, they weigh the turkey.
Can't they already do
They
that
could
then?
charge $100 for the scale at the station right now. There's
Yeah,
nothing
they can.
prohibiting it.
Free to do
This
without.
would
a
actually
lot of
limit,
them
This would
already
limit their ability to charge.
we only dictate license sale, the agent fee on a license sale and the registration fee to actually register the deer, deer,
Yep.
turkey, is that under the same rule?
Yeah, deer and turkey, well, yeah.
And I'm not sure whether bear is or not, because that's a new.
Well,
function.
bears, yeah, I'd have to go double check that one, but, so the only thing right now is if we require them to take that information, then they have to stick to whatever our registration fee is and rule. We don't require weights, so a station could charge $100 to weigh a deer right now, or any other animal.
But during the bio check days, like the first few days, you are taking weights.
We take weights, I mean, a lot of us have our own scales. We have had to shift stations because certain stations charge additional for the weight. And because we require the hunters to provide it with us, we didn't feel right forcing them to pay it, so we just changed to a different station.
Just an interesting side story, my brother-in-law shot a deer, it was over 200 pounds, and wanted it weighed, so he could get his little patch, which is required, registered scales. Shot at Wentworth, went to Shawnee's store, called me and said, hey, there's no scale, the scale was broken, it maxed out, it was a new scale at 150. He said, I'm coming to Plymouth. I said, hold on, I don't think they weigh them at the fire station anymore. So I called back and he said, yeah, they don't weigh them. So he had to go to Newfound or Haverhill, and because the lieutenant told me that they do weigh them down in Newfound. I'm saying Newfound in Bristol. So there was quite a bit of driving just to get an animal weighed, and it's interesting that Bristol's involved with this because they get scaled.
For a little bit.
Which is completely separate from the department. It's just a little thing on the side, but they need a registered scale for that deal over 200 pounds.
That one's 1558.
So,
That's a situation that occurs in many places,
Yeah,
many places.
and so now he's registered it already at Shawnee, but now he's looking to go get a scale somewhere. So I can understand someone that doesn't register charging him to use the scale, because you're just showing up the way the animal. Yeah, so.
I think we should vote on it. All those in favor of supporting staff,
Can I ask you to,
it's 15.
I'm getting tripped up, can you just be more clear and say all those opposed, all those in favor? It just, I don't want us to get tripped up again.
Well, I'm always going to ask for the staff position, to support the staff, if that's what we're doing, if that's the motion I made.
Yeah, my eyes have been scrambling back and forth when you hang on support.
Yeah, yeah, we've
Hold
had a
on.
few
Okay.
trips, yes.
So, what staff? Okay.
I make a motion in favor of supporting HB 1558.
Supporting it?
No, no,
I'm
no.
sorry, opposing. Got me confused now.
See what I mean?
All right. Opposing.
I'll second
Yeah.
opposing it.
Okay, all those in favor
Opposing.
of opposing, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
See, I got out my Richard's Rules of Order. Just even
Pocket
working.
size.
How thick is it?
Robert.
And for the record, I'm striking that the bow originally, and I'm putting green and seconding it.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah, just 'cause, we go to the tape, I'm in
All
trouble.
right,
Dan, that falls under, remember 2 years ago I brought up about a Nashville, I'm not gonna name the place. But when somebody was bringing in a deer in and Fish and Game was there, they were charging everybody to weigh that deer. That bill would give them even more money to charge it. I'm glad to hear you're carrying your own. A sportsman should not be made
Yeah,
to pay for that.
yeah, and so again, these, because it's optional, it's optional for the station to give that, but if we're doing biocheck stations, we don't require people to pay that so we can get our data.
okay, moving on.
Moving on, we got HB 1024, relative to the use of air rifles for hunting game. This still expands the allowed use of air rifles to take game to 30 caliber or greater for all game. Staff is recommending opposed for the same reasons.
I recommend opposing.
I second. Any discussion? You heard from the colonel?
This is
No?
a common sense one.
Yes, I agree.
No, but technology is changing, and
Yeah.
so air rifles today are not air rifles.
I'm-
Let's put air rifles on.
It says that you can use an air rifle on a deer, come on.
They do it in Europe.
Or move.
They got smaller deer there.
I'm against it.
All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1024, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got nothing to do with staff.
So next is HB 1026, relative to resisting arrest. This bill establishes an affirmative defense to the crime of resisting arrest if the arrest was unlawful or unconstitutional. So if you're resisting arrest, when you get arrested and it comes to find out later that the arrest was unlawful or unconstitutional, the charge of resisting arrest would no longer be viable. And the staff is recommending opposed.
I make a motion to oppose House Bill 1026 FN.
I'm gonna second it for discussion.
Thank you.
Colonel,
Yes,
this is gonna apply to all law enforcement, correct?
that's correct.
Wouldn't the Chiefs Association really be the one going in battling this one?
Probably. We could go in certainly and sign in against it. And I can share with you the concerns I have with this. These are, affirmative defenses are very important, but they should be very strictly provided because it shifts the burden of proof to the good guys, frankly. And so there are certain cases where that's appropriate, there are other cases that it's not. This is a good example where it's not, and the reason is, if I commit a crime of shoplifting, I've committed an act that requires the police to prove certain elements. If when the police arrive, I refuse to be arrested and or assault him or run from him, that's a separate crime. That's a separate set of elements. And so if this were to pass and you went to court and said, well, he didn't really shoplift, he slid it in his pocket, but he was gonna take it up to the counter and pay for it, and the police can't prove otherwise, okay, then he's found innocent of that. But that shouldn't make him innocent of assaulting a police officer or running from him. Those are two separate offenses. And so this bill would combine those two acts, which is not sensible.
I just wanted to clear up that,
Yes.
Fish and Game won't be the leader on
We will
this.
not be the leader.
Right.
Most of the law
It's gonna
enforcement,
get heavy to the Chief of Police Association and most likely state police.
right, and when we approach testifying, we look at things like that. And if you go in, if you let the chiefs go in with the numbers and you just sign in against it, or be in there to support it, we do that all the time.
So the secondary would be wrestling with an officer
Could be,
would get dropped.
but both would get dropped. If the offense didn't occur, then it would have been all right to run from the police or assault the police. And I also see it as encouraging people to do more of that, because they got a good opportunity to get away with it. So they're two, I've argued in a courtroom many times successfully, they are two separate offenses. These are two separate, it's like shoplifting once and then shoplifting again, except you're shoplifting once and then you're running from police. That's a separate charge. Those are two separate charges and should not be connected together. There are consequences and laws to properly address an illegal arrest without having this.
Stop talking.
Sorry.
I also noted it has no support from Senate.
What?
There's no senators that sign on to this.
So I think in the past we've been maybe a bit inconsistent, but when it's been more of a general LE issue, like the PT test, we didn't end up taking, we went back and forth, but what we came to is that that's not really a fish and game topic, so we ultimately went with no, we didn't take a position. But this you feel strongly enough that.
This would be a fishing game topic.
Yes, with the PT, we could enforce our own PT regs.
Right.
Even if the state set a lower one for officers, we should maintain ours. With this one, our officers are now getting beat up when they, and we have no recourse. So-
And I ask, right, just so that we try to be consistent in our approach.
All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1026, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to HB 1029, relative to exempting certain persons from requiring a New Hampshire landing license if such persons are not landing for the purpose of the sale of the lobster or crab they have caught, or they just want to eat it. And the staff is recommending oppose.
I make a motion to oppose House Bill 1029. A second for discussion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I understand this is to get at, if you took your vessel, you're out beyond, into international waters, and you brought your crab or lobster back and took it out down at wherever, Hilton Park or wherever, that this would allow you to do that by saying,
Without a landing license.
you wouldn't have a landing license because you took it in international waters. Which is, if I recall testimony, it was about the poor divers can't afford a big expensive boat, so we need to allow them to go diving for lobster. But now they're talking about going out to international waters and taking, what are we, 3 miles? 3 miles off the coast. So I find it disingenuous, quite frankly.
What you're gonna do is push the boats that are going out into international waters, if you're gonna push them to unload in another state. In other words, I go beyond the limit. I do, say, offshore lobstering. And I come in and I decide my load, I'm gonna get more money, go unload that load at, say, the Yankee Co-op.
This is for recreational.
Yeah, they're not selling.
This is not for sale.
Sure you would like to.
Yeah.
Oh, Sheree? Come on.
Hey, can you hear me okay, or you want me up there?
I think, can you hear?
I can hear.
We're good.
Okay. So, what this refers to is that we currently have a landing license for individuals that are coming from federal waters, or individuals coming from other state waters to land their lobster in our state. and it's extremely hard to track landings or to track these people that don't have reporting requirements, don't have other requirements because they're coming to a state that, that they can kind of hide in. So that's the whole premise behind this particular regulation. It was meant for commercial purposes. The problem I have with this particular proposed legislation is because it would be unenforceable to indicate if somebody is landing commercial or recreational. You know, if they were out there fishing, well, federal waters, it would be commercial because there's no recreational license in federal waters. But for example, if they were fishing because they had a recreational lobster license in the state of Massachusetts, but they keep their boat in, say, Hampton or Seabrook. They want to come in with that catch for possession of boat is thwarted. That would be very difficult for us to enforce as to whether that catch that's coming in was recreational or commercial. So my recommendation, if I was going to speak to Representative Hill, would be to initiate a recreational landing license. And we have the commercial landing license. And the recreational license can then be something that can be traceable as to whether somebody has a commercial license, say in the state of Massachusetts, where there would be no confusion as to whether they're trying to usurp these commercial regulations that we're trying to track. I don't have a problem with it, it's just that right now it's unenforceable the way it's written.
Sheree, how much is that license?
For non-resident, $500. So that's where it becomes, difficult for somebody who has a recreational license to pay for that if they're keeping their boat in Hampton or Seabrook.
Any further discussion? All right, thank you. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1029, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next is 1069, relative to materials subject to disclosure following a public meeting under the right to know law. This bill provides that even drafts, preliminary drafts that are circulated to a quorum or a majority of the public body shall be available for inspection following a public meeting under the right to know law. So currently any drafts that are, that are circulated, like the draft minutes that Susan sent out to say, hey, look at this. If this passes, that would be subject to the right to know law and disclosable under that. Currently drafts are not subject to disclosure. Staff is recommending oppose because a draft, by its very nature, can contain inaccurate and incorrect information.
As did our minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1069, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is HB 1417, relative to the wild trout management. We have had meetings with Representative Reed, the prime on this bill, and phone calls and emails, and we are meeting with her again on Friday. We think that currently we're recommending oppose, with the caveat, she has agreed to bring an amendment that will remove reference to the word native trout, because that is our big concern with the genetics testing and analysis that would be required in order to determine what a fish is, if it's genetically native, in order to add that water body to a list that would meet all these criteria. Otherwise, once she does that, we're okay with it because it leaves it up to the department to set the criteria, to put these water bodies on the list for wild trout management, which we're already doing. We already have 16 water bodies on the list for wild trout management. The idea behind this is to increase the number of water bodies that would be on wild trout management, that would not have stocking, that would be catch and release only, only single hooks, those things. And so we already have 16 water bodies that are on that list. This looks to expand it, but we get to set the criteria. If she removes the native, we'd be okay with that. So, and she is aware that this is, until we see the amendment, staff recommends oppose. But once the amendment comes out, we can come back to the commission to get a different.
I'm gonna make a motion to oppose until we see an amendment.
I'll second that.
What?
I'll second.
Can we just not vote on it?
I would like to know, because
No, I think it's too important.
the chairman has already made this point. If we don't position, we're not taking a vote in the
Very good.
and
We would like a position from the commission.
In other words, my motion is to oppose for the reason of why we're opposing.
and I second. Any discussion?
I do, just because, getting it out there before the amendment comes, in case it comes last minute. The list of water bodies that would fall under this are then managed and added by FIS.
I'm sorry, speak up?
The list of water bodies that fall under this, the executive director shall prepare a comprehensive list.
Mhm.
It doesn't say that that's through rulemaking. So today we could have a list of 5, tomorrow we could have a list of 500, because the executive director makes
Once
that list.
once we develop the criteria. We currently have the list in rules. It doesn't prohibit us from putting it in rule either.
But it's not prohibited from adding more that aren't in rules. The only way to designate it of wild trout management is to put it in rules? Or no?
No,
Okay, I'm seeing like
Yeah, I'm
multiple
confused
different
now.
head shapes. So what I'm asking is, if we expand or change this criteria, right? Today we have 5 for sake of discussion, right? Tomorrow we could have 500 and people don't know about it, or we have to put those 495 through rulemaking to get them to be added onto the list.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
In order to have a law you could enforce.
yes.
Okay, but it doesn't, but this doesn't talk about, that list being done by rulemaking.
No, you're right, it doesn't. The criteria that is in here is copied and pasted from our rules, though.
Right, and I wanted to give this commentary now, not wait until the amendment comes, because what if that amendment comes and, everybody says that's the only thing we wanted to take off, but I wanted to get those comments out if there's an opportunity to work with Representative Reed.
So is she trying to codify our existing rule
No,
into RSA?
no, under section 3, the executive director shall prepare a comprehensive list of waters eligible for the program. The executive director shall review such list at least every 10 years with the purpose of expanding. But why wouldn't that list be in FIS? And so then adding, and that list shall be, according to 541 yada yada, put into FIS. 1, that way so it can be enforced, but 2, that there's a process, and I don't have a list that has 5 today and 500 tomorrow. Because if we were to add areas close to hunting, that would go into FIS. If we were to add areas closed to fishing, that would go into FIS. So if we're creating a list of water bodies that fall under this, that have special rules, why wouldn't that be in FIS? And then we add the language that points that list shall be maintained.
We likely would put it in rules, that's where it is now. Our 16 water bodies that already meet these criteria are in rules. That's right, she took that out of rules. This does not specify or direct us to put it in rules. to your
My
point. You're
recommendation
exactly
would
right.
be, I would like to see it point to, that list gets put into rules.
We can mention it to her when we meet with her on Friday.
There's a couple other problems with the language. All brook trout should be immediately released. I know, Diane, conversations with you, sometimes some of our native brook trout water, we actually want trout to be harvested. So that's a problem.
But because, right, and we've had this discussion with her, but the criteria for the water bodies would be left up to the department. So if there are water bodies that we don't want catch and release on, we wouldn't add them to the list.
Yeah, the key part here, it doesn't mandate us to put anything on a list.
Right.
It just says that we have to review things in reference to creating a list. If we determine that we don't have waters that fit the criteria that we create as part of the management plan, then we don't have to add anything.
I have an issue with this report that's supposed to be due January 1, 2025. I just view it as another unfunded mandate. We have staff that have a lot of current job responsibilities, and this just seems like another unfunded mandate.
Well, I think that's a great point, Susan, and if it's in FIS, why does there have to be a report, right? Because the executive director shall send a copy of the report, and send it, or it shall also publish a report. Like, if it's all in FIS, it's transparent, here are the water bodies, and so your report go to FIS. I appreciate the director's commentary on 2D also. Again, I would recommend we try to manage that in FIS. And so when we also, for my fellow commissioners, when we update the language in section 3, which I'm proposing, to point to rulemaking with the consent of the commission.
I think you have the right motion on the floor. I think the idea of trying to amend this is probably wrong. I think the commission should just propose this period.
All right, all those in favor of opposing House Bill 1417, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, HB 14. 14.
1532?
Yeah, no, 14. Oh, 14.
I have 1532 in the stack.
Yeah.
but there's
Yeah, I have
14.
Okay, sorry. I am totally out of order.
Yeah.
I've got 1532, but I thank you. I just want, let's see what that fits in. It's like I jumped around. Oh, okay, yes, got it. Relative to landowner rights and responsibility pertaining to game cameras. Sorry, I'm just, it just bubbling over. This bill requires agencies, oops, not part. This bill allows a tree stand to be erected from August 1st to June 1st and allows for the placement of game cameras on the property with the owner's permission. It's game cameras and tree stands. And basically saying you can keep it up, keep your tree stand up from August 1st to June 1st and label the game cameras with and keep on with owner's permission. We kind of were expecting this after last year.
So it's not on your LSR list, I think that's what.
I think that's why we got confused.
It's LSR 2540. It's actually on the second page. of the
Second
list.
page, yeah.
No, so the number is back. Yeah, but it's 1420 there.
Yeah.
In my next stack of papers.
Yeah, but it's 2540.
I have 1532 in my next stack.
Yes, I must have got it out of order or something. So, sorry.
Is everybody looking at 1532 or what?
So we're striking
1532 is,
32.
Okay.
landowner rights and responsibilities, yeah.
Okay. And what's staff recommendation?
I don't know what happened to that one.
Opposed?
Okay. I make a
Well,
motion.
maybe turn up later. and
Me
just
too.
go back.
Sorry, which one do you want? LSR what?
LSR 2540, House Bill 1532.
Right, the HB
The number
that she
was
sent
wrong.
out, the number was wrong.
Got it.
Okay, the number in the column is wrong.
It's
Yeah.
wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry about that. We were
15.
trying to get it all done yesterday.
All right. I make a motion to oppose House Bill 1532. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Colonel, any input?
Yeah, I don't, none of this change is necessary. We debated all of this through the most hearings I've ever attended at a legislative session for a camera bill. And the landowners got what they wanted. That's really was the goal here. I'm not sure what all of this is about, but it's putting on requirements that are not necessary and not requested by any landowner that I was aware of. So I think doing it again is nonsense. And the other thing I'm gonna add in my testimony is going to be, can we at least let the bill become effective in law? And let's go a season with it and see if we have a problem before we start creating more, and then come back if there's a problem.
I was contacted by Tom Thompson
Yeah.
over this, and I assured him that he and Sheila would not have to drive down here.
Right.
That you would take care of it.
Yeah.
So, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of opposing House Bill 1532, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I just want to, can't find the other two. I must have forgot to, or skipped printing those other two. So if you want to go back to the last one, at the bottom of page 1, which is HB 1420, you don't have it in your stack. I neglected to print it, but I just want, this is the one relative to communications between agencies and citizens. This bill requires agencies to promptly reply to any inquiries, complaints, and requests for assistance within 3 business days. And staff is recommending to oppose it because we feel that within 3 business days is a bit restrictive. Currently, we have 5 days to respond to a right to know request. To restrict us to 3 days for anything that's not a right to know request seems even more extreme. So if Dan gets a request for information and he's out in the field, it might be 2 or 3 days before he even gets back in the office to look at his emails. We're recommending oppose that, and I apologize I didn't print it off.
I make a motion that we oppose House Bill 1420.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I'd like to get eyes on it first.
The other thing it requires is that we have a central number, a single central number with a person to answer it full-time,
Another unfunded mandate.
which we don't have a position for.
That's different LSR,
Is it a different one?
Yeah.
Okay.
but still, it's not enforceable. It's no way to control that.
Okay. Yes.
I make a recommendation that we come back to the ones that we don't have in front of us, please.
All right, now we're gonna motion.
Oh, shit, no. It's not a touchscreen. I never thought I'd like touchscreens.
Yeah, it's 1420.
Never thought Eric would be handing me
Yeah.
his tablet before I could do it on my phone.
But be careful, Larry, you get like a kid.
You have some video games on there?
Yes. Just got lucky.
Any further discussion?
And what's so bad about that? I've read it 3 or 4 times, I can't see anything wrong with it, but what's bad about that?
The restriction to, we must respond within 3 days.
Right.
What if you're not here?
Right, and for, if someone submits a right to know request, we have 5 days, 5 business days to respond. This would curtail our ability to, we'd have to respond even more quickly. And it's not consistent. If they wanted to make it 5 days, then it's with, right to know. So it's like, well, it's right to know, I've got 5 days. If it's not right to know, I've got 3.
Thank you.
And in reference to the 5 to 3, because I don't have it in front of me, but is it saying business days?
Yes, business days.
All right. Because if it just said 3 days, you
Oh,
submit
no.
on a Friday, you better have it to them on Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree with going lower, it's too hard to keep it up.
I mean, and we typically respond for, I monitor the comments inbox and we respond in a timely manner.
I think 5 is prompt.
Any further discussion?
Well, I'm getting the link.
No,
It's
sorry.
1525.
Hot off the press.
Oh, thank you.
So is there another one?
1325. You-
Okay, I'll print that one.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll call the vote
Thanks,
on all those in favor of approving House Bill 1420, please say aye.
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 Thank you. And then, okay, at the top of the next page, apparently I didn't print that one either. What's the number now?
So the next
HB
one-
1417?
On this page,
14.
It's LSR 2432.
Yeah.
Thank you.
1325.
1325.
Where's 13?
Are you looking for 1417?
Yeah, she's
Yes.
printing another bill.
Yeah, she's printing 1417, next on the list.
That's it, yeah.
All
that's-
right.
Let's move to the next
Instead
one
of
while we
waiting for
wait
a
for
print, can we
our.
go to what's in front of us?
Okay,
so
we'll come
1530.
back to this one. So HB 1530, requiring Fish and Game officers to wear body cameras. That's
I'm gonna make a motion to oppose.
staff.
I'll second for discussion.
I'm gonna oppose it under one simple rule. One that's targeted just at Fish and Game. I did a career with body cameras. I'm a big believer in the Fish and Game can't trust the CO. He shouldn't be working here, never mind have a camera on.
Our big concern is that it's unfunded mandate.
Yes.
I put it in the simple term.
Because that would be a large expense for us, and there's
Now, the
no
expenses
funding.
that are involved, the upkeep that's involved, the record making that's involved, but to me, the bottom line is, if you're gonna put a camera on a CO because you don't trust them, you shouldn't be working.
Well, the
And
camera-
I've had 3 police chiefs, by the way, which I asked them about this, and all 3 agreed with me. I'm opposed.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of opposing House Bill 1530 FN, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you. Next is HB 1121. Relative to creating certain wetlands permit exemptions after a natural disaster or flooding event. This allows a landowner to remove blockages to perennials or seasonal streams in order to restore flow without a permit after a natural disaster. Staff is recommending oppose for obvious reasons.
I will make a motion to oppose. I will make a motion to oppose House Bill 1121. Can I have a second for discussion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I will relate a real-life scenario that this would apply to. About 10 years ago, on Severance Road, a guy by the name of Horsey had a beaver dam, and there was a big rainstorm. And he was upset that the beaver dam was backing up his property. And the town came and said, well, you know, you can take that out, you might need a wetlands permit. Well, he didn't bother with any of that. He got in there with Kubota, pulled the beaver dam out, you know, because this was a lot of rain, natural disaster, and it flooded Severance Road. And the town gave him a $20,000 road repair bill because it took out blew out a culvert. So I oppose this. This is as a real life example of why I would oppose this. I mean, there's a reason we have the DES and all these wetland rules, and, you know.
Yes, our concern is with habitat and water preservation.
And you recall the storm in Vermont a few years ago, what was that one, Sandy? I think that was the name of it, and they were doing stuff like this to deal with that, and they really damaged a lot of their habitat, you know, including major rivers like the Batten Hill. So I'm really opposed to this. Any further discussion? John, you look like you might have something.
I'm having a little conflict here mentally.
I'm thinking how many people just today alone would be, what's this, after the rains we just had.
Well, it says here in the body of it that they should be exempted from, they shall not be subjected to any fines or penalties for work done to clear debris or blockage. I mean, that just opens the door. You go in there with a bulldozer and knock over your neighbor's stone wall. I mean, the fact that it's giving you that, it's a little bit over protection. Because one person's, you know, moving a few rocks is different than another guy cutting down 4 trees and uprooting or whatever's been uprooted, moving it. Yeah, they let you play with beaver dams manually. They
Now,
don't
the other
use
thing
the
too
equipment.
is it's saying if the property owner does the work, the local conservation officer shall be contacted, and the local conservation officer may give input regarding the planned work.
Is that really a conservation officer?
Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
Yeah, they're not wetlands permitting.
I agree.
Nor do we want to be.
You got that degree too, Ken?
Yeah. Like you just imagine what that could do.
All right, any further discussion? All right, thank you. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1121, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Dan was nice enough to get us this House Bill 1325.
And Kathy?
And Kathy, I'm sorry. Gotta work hers too. I'll bring that one up. So that was
I don't know, what's the bill?
1325.
What's the title?
Relative to allowing
private ownership of
Kangaroos.
small.
Oh, okay.
Kangaroo bill.
Marty, on your sheet,
I've got that one wrong too, okay.
yeah, you put 14.
Gotcha, thank you.
I make a motion to oppose.
I second.
What's the corrected number, please? House
All right, House Bill 1325.
It's LSR 2432.
is 1325.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So this is relative to allowing private ownership of small exotic animals without a permit.
Don't look at me.
Staff is opposing, recommending opposing.
And some native animals.
Yeah, I make a motion to oppose House Bill 1325. Can I have a
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion?
No, I made the motion.
Yeah,
Did you? I'm sorry, there was so much stuff
I
going on.
know.
Green motion,
Maybe I'll get the top first.
go. I got you written there.
Already, I know, kangaroos, you can have them, but it's only for display only, and you have to have a permit. Relative to allowing private ownership of small-tailed monkeys, raccoons, foxes, and otters, skunks, and kangaroos. No, no.
You're say monkey.
Monkey.
One more time.
Oh, man.
This is becoming a north and south thing? Monkey.
I've been accused of owning skunks, that I control, which houses they go under. But I don't own any skunks.
I just view this as an assault upon wildlife. Wildlife is wildlife, not domestic life.
Exactly, I do know.
Any further discussion or corny jokes?
No more corn jokes.
Right. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1325, please say aye. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for bearing with me in my errors. I was under pressure yesterday to get this done. Kevin kept harassing me. Are you gonna get this done? Okay, moving on. HB 1527, relative to criminal trespass, also known as the purple paint bill, is back. Staff is recommending oppose.
I'm waiting for you.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm against this one, but if
I
against
second
this
it.
one that came up, what, last year or the year before?
So your motion?
I'm motioning to oppose this bill.
I second. You're exactly right. This is about putting the purple marks, and it confuses hunters. And that's the intent of it, is because there's no identifying information on that purple patch that says that an actual landowner, the person that owns the land, put that purple mark up on the tree. And it's really an anti-hunting bill. It's designed to confuse hunters as to boundaries, and is it a legal boundary? That's why we have signs. And when you put up a sign restricting access to your property, you have to put your contact information on it. So somebody can call and say, hey, Joe, you're 200 miles away. Did you know you put there's trespass signs up on your property? And so that is why we keep that program, where you have to put a written sign up. So I oppose it.
The other thing on that is that anybody could just drive down the road with a can of spray paint, spray a tree, and my own personal reason is I'm colorblind. I'm not gonna see purple.
Yes.
Comment?
Yes, sir.
I know that in states where this exists, you also get absentee owners who discover that their property boundaries have been painted by a neighbor who just doesn't want anyone hunting there. That happens all the time. I would also say, and I'll stand corrected, but as this is written, it says criminal trespass. So those who want to go for a hike with their Nikon and Bowser, their puppy, they can't go on that property either. So it targets everyone that has the privilege now of enjoying open space, unmarked, unposted properties. So it hits the entire audience. So I can't find any favor with this bill myself.
Any further comments, discussion? All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1527, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is the bill number has not come out yet, or at least as of the end of yesterday, relative to the sale of kangaroo and caribou meat. We expect that we're going to recommend opposing it, but obviously we'll wait until the language comes out. So
Which bill number?
The bill's not out
It's only
yet.
an
It's LSR 2579, relative to the sale of kangaroo and caribou meat.
Moving on to 1521.
Yes, we'll move on to HB 1521, requiring agencies to respond to issues raised by the public during the rulemaking process. Staff is recommending oppose this because sometimes we don't want to respond to the comments that have come in, or there's no response to make. We get comments, as you guys know, and then we take them under consideration and we decide not to do anything with those comments. This could require us to react to those comments. And if you read, it also requires a detailed explanation for any time we decide not to do something on comment.
I'll make a motion, we oppose it.
It
I second it.
postpones the effectiveness of a rule.
We're with you.
Thank you. I could go on and on.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1521, please say aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next one is establishing a tax on land used for carbon credits. The language on that one's not out, LSR 2613, so we're just going to move on. We're going to wait and see what that looks like when it comes out. Moving on to HB 1228, relative to establishing a Fish and Game Guides Committee to determine qualifications for licensure of fish and game guides. The committee would consist of 5 COs appointed by the commission to develop applications, exams, and the appeals process for denial, and it would allow unlimited tries at taking the written and oral exams for applicants. Right now, it's, what is it, they can take it twice?
Take it twice and then start again.
And then have to start again. This would allow them to take it and take it and take it and take it.
Starting again, meaning taking a year off, or?
So what happens is, in the beginning, when we were giving this, we had people fail it because they were learning the process, and so we were allowing them to retake the oral part. There were so many doing that in the beginning, we were not getting any new members, so we limited it. Said, look, you can go through it twice, then you have to take the test again. Retake the written exam and do it again.
I didn't make a motion to oppose.
That eliminated, oh, I'm sorry.
Seconding.
That's okay.
That eliminated the opportunity to get new guides a chance.
I have personal prior experience with this. I think most people know. This is about a gentleman from Wolfboro. And he admitted to me personally on more than one occasion that he's not very good with maps and compass. And evidently this is where he failed in the exam. To me, that's a personal problem. I think Commissioner Green agrees. First of all, we can already address any of this in rules. The issue of it, somebody from the Guides Association, which I have an issue with, in the oral exam, we can deal with that in rules. And I told the gentleman from Wolfboro, and I believe at least one other commissioner told the gentleman from Wolfboro, that he could do a 30-day petition to change the rule. And has chosen to pursue this statutorily, so I oppose it. Any further discussion, comment? All right. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1228, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next one is HB 1494. Is relative to OHRVs. This bill modifies the definition of OHRV gloves, as well as vehicle registration requirements for other off-road vehicles and the distribution fees and granting aid funds. Staff is recommending opposed. Yes,
I think it's well-intentioned, but there's a lot of issues that are thrown into one bill. Some that, one of which would be the allowing kids under the age of a certain age to operate with passengers in a golf cart. We don't define a golf cart as an OHRV, so therefore we don't want to get into the business of regulating golf carts. That could open the door for that. Also, a portion of it speaks to special commercial plates on UTVs, side-by-sides. That doesn't relate to us at all. That would be a Department of Motor Vehicle issue and something they would have to deal with. The only thing that really, and then there's some definitions as far as OHRV clubs, how costs of grant aid, which is a Bureau of Trails issue. And then really the only thing that affects us would be the event permits, which we would be in favor of, and have spoken about in the House, the OHRV Commission meetings, which would, we do the bulk of event permits for events for OHRVs and snowmobiles where there would, are no registrations required. That funding is split up between us and the grant and aid program. The issue with that is that about 60% of these events do not occur on trails. We're doing the bulk of the work and then giving the majority of the fee for that to Bureau of Trails for grant and aid. So that I would agree with. The other issue that we have with it, that only speaks to snow machine events, it does not speak to OHRV events. So for that reason, it's an amalgamation of issues that only speaks to one that doesn't really help us much because it only speaks to one event process.
Make a motion to oppose House Bill 1494. And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1494, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is HB 1503, relative to the definition of wetlands. Staff is opposing this. We're not very comfortable with the change in definition. Because it's allowing that a wetland could be defined as an area that results as a wetland due to the failure of culvert. So something that's not normally a wetland would all of a sudden become a wetland because a culvert failed.
I make a motion that we oppose House Bill 1503.
Second it.
I'll second that, but Marty's written the opposite.
I'm going to say, or just, right, I realize that, I'm not sure I said that, but opposite that.
And that still stays true for the recommendation.
Pardon?
And that doesn't change the position.
I don't think so.
You wouldn't change designations because of a short-term flood, would you?
This is, yeah, this is basically,
Saying that it's not included in the definition of a wetland because of the flood.
Yeah, but it wouldn't, you wouldn't redefine a parcel of land because of a culvert failure. Usually definition of wetland has to do with what grows there.
yeah, yeah. And the frequency of the water, vernal pool versus.
Sorry, I said that wrong. So an area that becomes a wetland only because of the failure of a culvert is not included in the definition. What do you think, Director? Do you still want it?
Just clearing up the definition of wetlands.
Yeah.
No, he put Mike Dye on.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the position was to oppose based on this. And again, because, I mean, somewhat to your point, but, I mean, I think it could open the door for someone to say, well, that's not a wetland, it's only a wetland because of it's only a wetland because the culvert failed. But again, I mean, there's culverts and all sorts of things through wetlands all throughout the state.
Or maybe just remove it.
So,
You're
just
thinking
trying to
what I'm
clarify,
thinking
does
of.
staff
Yes.
oppose this? Or-
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion that we oppose House Bill 1503. Second?
Yeah, hang it on, seconded it.
Okay. All right.
Didn't you?
I'll call the question.
We-
Motion.
I make a motion that we oppose House Bill 1503 FN. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
1584. Relative to current use taxation for certain forested lands, and exempts carbon credit forests from paying or being classified as current use, and so then they would not be in the current use category if they're, if they are carbon credit forests.
Well, let's turn loose creative. I make a motion to oppose House Bill 1484 local. Got a second for purpose of discussion?
John, you want to second that?
I will second.
Thank you. And I'd be most interested in your opinion. You have the most expertise in this regard.
It's interesting that it's so simple on the paper, but it is very complicated. This is oversimplifying the discussion, and the discussion has been had, as you might expect. And of course, this all is spawned as a result of the Connecticut Lakes project. Okay, and the fact that the company up there, if you haven't heard, you will hear, they've already changed their name from Blue Source, okay, and they're gonna operate under a separate umbrella. But what this is basically looking towards, okay, is perhaps, this is based on discussion and what has been shared with me from other sources, that if properties that normally would generate some income to towns through timber tax, it's basically going to be a charge like payment in lieu of taxes. Okay, that's essentially where this discussion would end up. And I'm not sure, but the chair of the commission, Eric, may have heard these discussions up north, as well as the director. So,
Eric, do you have any insights on that? Since it's your backyard, it's affecting.
It's gonna be everywhere, not just my backyard.
Well, yeah, but that's where the spawn is, in the acreage.
That's where the representative is from. There's another bill from Representative Davis for the same thing that we haven't got yet. I've looked at the alley here.
The problem here is that this, if a landowner decides to enter the carbon market, they lose the ability to put their forest into current use taxation. So this is a major increase in the real estate tax bill, which can have a huge impact on land ownership in New Hampshire. I think in a negative way, and it will probably. Our concern is to protect the habitat as best we can. Gee.
that's my foot.
That's you.
That's my foot. Right here.
You've got the largest foot in town.
They've got me wired.
And what we're afraid of is that it'll actually have a negative impact on habitat. Some of the large tracts of land. I agree with what Blue Source did the worst job. I can't imagine doing any worse job of announcing what you're doing than what Blue Source did. They went in and they fired the jobbers and let them go out into the woods and the territories to explain what was going on. So it is a very contentious issue up there. But this bill will probably drive land into either development or into what we call kingdom lots quicker than where we are right now. So we're afraid that this will have a negative impact on sportsmen's access as well as habitat, the way this is written.
I understand exactly what the director is saying, but I would also ask that you consider maybe where this will end up or is headed towards is another classification under current use. That's where I think it will ultimately be. And that's the potential. And God knows, we've all been aware of it, about every other section across town, current use comes under attack. There are people who just feel as though it's a complete subsidy. They don't understand the program. I'm all in favor, fully support completely understand the necessity that, and the responsibility that we have to maintain, ensure, promote habitats. I think that I really think that as simple as it is, that what we're looking at is something that's going to evolve into another category under the umbrella of current use. And taking these properties, okay, and putting them on the shelf for a period of time, depending upon the program you enroll in. It could be for 20 years, it could be for 100 years, okay? You know, management is a verb. It requires action, okay? And not only creating habitats, but maintaining the habitats that are important to things under the umbrella of Fish and Game. It requires management, not sitting by and letting something evolve for a 100-year period. So,
Well, we're actually in the process of putting part of our land in current use, but with a deed restriction. And the primary reason we're putting it in current use is it's a nice piece of land next to 5,000 plus acres of Lakes Region Conservation Trust. And someday we will depart this land, this earth, and we don't want to see the land developed. But you can't just do that in current use, because they'll pay, a developer will pay a 10% penalty. So we're going to extra the next step is putting a restriction on the deed. And that is probably something that's a bigger discussion than we have time for. You know, I kind of like this at the same time, but I think current use after 4 years needs a little bit of tweaking. You know, I would like to see what we're doing. If your intent of putting it into current use is to preserve it, because you don't want a conservation easement, then you have to look at the restriction on the deed that goes with it. That's just an extra step, but.
So, is this, other than sportsman access, is this really in our wheelhouse?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because.
Sportsman's access as well as habitat.
Because all of that up north is under
It's
easement.
recreational access.
Currently, it's under,
Correct.
so they can't develop it, and the sportsman will have access.
Right. But this isn't just about that piece of property. This is about all forest land in New Hampshire.
So around the state.
So around the state. So like, for example, Stratford Bog is owned by an Italian company. If they decide to sell carbon credits on that property, they're no longer gonna be able to get current use taxation. It changes the cost of owning the land, and they're gonna, you know, eventually, economically speaking, they're gonna make the decision, well, I'd rather own land in Georgia than I would New Hampshire, where I can get 2 income streams instead of just the one off of cutting trees in New Hampshire. I agree with what John's saying. There are better solutions. Unfortunately, this is the bill that's in front of us. I would recommend the commission oppose this. If we see what John is talking about show up, that's a whole different discussion.
Okay. We're running into lunchtime for the folks in the audience. I make a motion that we oppose House Bill 1484. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Just
Next
as
one.
an announcement, your lunch is upstairs. Tanya told me to tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is HB 1138, equalizing the fines for operating an OHRV with a driver's license suspended with operating a snowmobile with a driver's license suspended. So it's just making it consistent. And the staff is recommending support.
I make a motion that we support House Bill 1138 FN.
I'll second that.
Can I call a question?
What?
I'm going to call a question for the regular vote if there's no discussion. All right. All those in favor of supporting House Bill 1138 FN, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Senate Bill 336, to misrepresentation by state employees. So this is like, or by public employees.
I
same
don't
thing.
have that one.
This is SB 336. You
It's
should have
missing
it.
in my packet.
It's after 11:38?
Yeah.
Okay. This bill would require that if an employee knowingly makes fraudulent or misrepresentations to a member of the public during the course of their job, they would be subject to disciplinary action through their employer or through the licensing board. And the staff is recommending oppose this. I'm sure the union is going to oppose this as well. We don't want to be put into statute when an employee should be disciplined.
I make a motion that we oppose Senate Bill 336 FM. Do I have a second?
Vote. Yes, I'll second.
Any discussion?
Kevin, if you'd raise your concern on this.
Yes, so just so you're aware, we are allowed, many states allow it, during an investigation or interrogation to mislead suspects during an investigation. So having something like this would tie their hands up to not any longer be allowed to do that. It's an effective tool to try and gain confessions or evidence.
Yes, we've seen Northwood's Law.
I would restrict that.
NCIS.
I don't think we use it a lot, but I don't want to be restricted from any investigative tool.
All right. All those in favor of opposing Senate Bill 336 FM, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next is Senate Bill 542, relative to the appointments to the Fish and Game Commission. This bill enables the Native American Affairs Commission to nominate persons to be considered for membership on the Fish and Game Commission.
I make a motion that we oppose this Senate
Yeah, we
Bill
have-
542.
Staff has no position, but
May I have a second? please?
Second.
Thank you. You have a free speech right to nominate anyone you want. The group, I did a little research on the sporting clubs. That was, it really seemed unnecessary, it passed through. But, you can get a group of people together and nominate someone to the governor. You can send their name in or encourage them to send their name in and the appropriate paperwork. There's nothing that stops you from doing that. In addition, this is really unnecessary because I like to think that all the commissioners, we have a meritocracy, so to speak, about meeting the statutory requirements to be a commissioner. And Commissioner DeRosa, which I understand is 50% Native American heritage, had no problem meeting the merits of the RSA to become a commissioner. So it seems totally unnecessary if the intent is to place someone of Native American heritage on the commission, because we already have a member under the current existing law. Any further comments?
I'll keep my comment to the same as on the last bill. We don't get involved in this.
All right. All those in favor of opposing Senate Bill 542, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
the next one, SB 503, is ours. It's the requiring a criminal background check when applying for a fish and game guide license. We recommend support.
I make a motion to support SB 503. Second.
I'll second.
No discussion, I'll call a question. All those in favor of supporting SB 503, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next one, SB 310, is relative to bear registration. This is also commission requested. We're recommending support.
I make a motion that we support SB 310.
Second.
Thank you. Calling the question, all those in favor of supporting SB
I
310?
have a
Oh, sorry.
comment. I know this is ours, and I just share it if it makes sense. We say registration seal. When we put this through now, should we say registration seal or confirmation number?
This
So
is
that-
theirs. Theirs still
Theirs.
use seal.
Now they do. But
Yeah.
I'm sorry I thought of it now after we already discussed it, so I'll leave it with you if you want to think about that, but that's the direction we're going.
Yeah, the difference with bears, we need to have, because we need to pull the tooth on them,
Yeah,
you know, I don't see us getting away from that.
okay.
Yeah, but it is a good point.
All those in favor of supporting SB 310, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is SB 390 relative to defining critical habitat. This adds the definition for critical habitat and includes considering the future range of a species for when considering conservation efforts. And the staff is recommending support.
I think I, okay, got it ordered. Which one are we on?
SB 390.
Okay. I make a motion that we support Senate Bill 390. Have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Well, I got a lot of questions about this one, okay, and we really don't have time. But on the surface, I do not support this, okay, because this is really open-ended. And I'm looking for a real definition on this, okay, parameters. All right, who's determining critical habitat? And for what species, okay, and the future critical habitat. Habitats continually evolve and change, okay? And if you, are you gonna manage those habitats to support, okay, these species? Right here today, I personally will not support this.
I can speak to that a little bit. So Senator Waters had reached out to us about this. The definition that is used for critical habitat is actually the existing definition we have in our rules. So we were able to work with him to use our existing definition that we already use in rules. This is all around T&E species. The wording about current or projected range is that's not part of the definition of what critical habitat is. That is just in the conservation programs part, which essentially all it says is when we're planning management efforts for T&E species, we'll consider that their ranges may shift for whatever reason. But that part is not a part of the definition of what critical habitat is. And the definition is what we have in rule now.
So I have a question.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there a difference between threatened and endangered?
Yes.
Yes, there is. I don't feel this provides enough for me, and I'll just say it, for me to vote in favor of it. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, my concern with projected future range of a species. Would it help if we could have cut the ridge on the other side of the valley to that species? Or, I mean, that's just, that's so much gray area, projected future range.
So again, though, I just want to point out that's not part of the definition of what critical habitat is. That's just saying that when we're planning to manage a species, we'll consider how their range might change. So that, I mean, that does not, for conservation purposes, that does not obligate, or, you know, that part wouldn't, so like say we're doing permitting or something like that, that projected future range, that doesn't play a role. That's just somewhat guidance language for the department to say when you're planning on conserving a species, you should be considering these things.
All of our regulatory stuff is actually on, forgive me, I don't have the right legal term, but basically on a known site.
Yep.
And it has to meet certain requirements for it to be a known site. It can't just be, well, like the other day, we got an email to our links in Ronin. That's not considered a known siting for the links now to be considered in that area. But as time goes on, we do, we're able to correctly identify, sightings, and then that's added on to the NHB list, and that's how we deal with all the sightings. But this is more about it is for us to look at as temperatures change, as we're seeing different impacts. How do we change some of the stuff that we're looking at for more long-range planning and thought process? And I apologize that I put it this way. It's kind of a bug that's going after beech nuts right now. You know, if we lose our beach forest, how does that, how do we change our plans to start dealing with that?
Yeah,
It's inevitable, right, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and we worked with Senator Waters. You know, he wanted to put something in here that acknowledged these important things, and we worked with him to get this in here so that it wouldn't impact what we currently are doing for permitting and the regulatory side of things. Because again, we think what we have in rules working well for us.
It seems to be working pretty well.
And this paragraph is directing it to the executive director to establish that program.
Yeah, and if you read, I mean, if you go through and you read that whole statute and see, we didn't want that addition of either within the current or projected future range in the definition of critical habitat, because we agree that's too vague. But it makes sense to put under the conservation programs portion, because that is something you should consider.
And that's being done in-house?
Yeah.
Under the executive director?
Yeah.
Commissioner Hodgson has a question.
Dan, did you say that Senator Waters, oh, you said him?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
I should have said done.
Well, I had a
Go
question
for it.
too.
All right.
Did Senator Waters initiate this, or did?
Senator Waters initiated it, and we worked with him.
What was the problem he was trying to solve?
I think Senator Waters is very conservation minded. I think he's concerned about these things, particularly, impacts of climate change and how that will change species distribution. And I think he was just looking to work with the department to do something to try and move the needle a little bit. And we worked with him to get language that we thought we were comfortable with, and that wouldn't change currently what we're doing in, the permitting side of things, which again, we think is working well.
Okay, go, David.
My question's for Dan. So the word projected, right? Does the staff currently project the future range of any of these species? And if you don't, do you use other projections? And if you do, where from?
Yeah, we likely do some of that to some extent in like the Wildlife Action Plan. And we certainly consider how species ranges may shift. You can, warming temperatures, changes in species composition of forests, all those things are gonna change where different species occur. So we do consider that stuff to some extent, and it'll vary depending on the species and what the impacts are. So I would say to some extent we're doing some of that already.
Do you actually have projections of range, or is it more an acknowledgement that ranges change?
I don't think we've seen enough change.
Right.
In the habitats to sit here and say that we've shifted it. I'm familiar with like elevation issues. There are certain species that we start finding at a certain elevation that we don't find in other locations. Right now, I don't think we've seen a change in that, but what some of the theories are is as time goes on, what we're now seeing at 2,400 feet, we're not gonna see them, until they hit 2,600 feet. And that would be some of the stuff that we may start seeing some changes. So like in the wildlife management plan, we may talk about, elevations above 2,600 feet, I think is the key number for certain species, but that doesn't fall into an AOT application because we can say that, pine martens are 2,600 feet and above, but, until we actually have, until we actually have a, confirmed sighting of a pine marten, we're not gonna sit there and hold that up in the AOT.
Last question, if I may, it's a follow-up. So do you, if this were included in statute, do you foresee any situation where the lack of a determination on projected range would limit or encumber your ability to participate in a program, make a management decision? Could it be used as a means for delaying or opposing a decision of the department. I'm sensitive to, you know, including administrative obligations in the statute unless we really understand what it means to undertake them.
Susan?
Oh, I'm sorry.
If I
Yeah,
may,
I'm over here trying to take notes too.
Oh, no, I was saying, so I'm along the same lines as Commissioner Hodgson. I appreciate the intent, and it's actually something that we've talked a lot about, you know, in our strategic planning. I know you're on the verge of kicking off your next wildlife action plan. This almost seems a little bit premature, and I think for that, I think going through maybe the wildlife action planning process, how you all start to address and plan kind of your next 10 years, working with Senator Waters on some language that covers what the intent is, because I think collectively we support moving in that direction. I don't want to speak for Mike, I can speak for myself, but it just feels a little premature and potentially a little bit limiting.
Yeah, I guess maybe I can speak to it. So I'm just reading that because I think that wording is broad enough where I don't think it would hold us up because it says either within the current or projected future range of the species. It seems pretty broad that I don't think that would hold us up. You know, to that extent, I think the language is pretty benign. But defer to the commission on your concerns about that. But I do think because of the specific words there, I don't think, yeah, either or. If it was more specific that said, if it was more specific to projected future range, but I think it leaves it open to what the department would deem necessary for the given species at hand, so.
You want to call the question?
All those in favor of supporting Senate Bill 390, please say aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And I think I would just say, I oppose not because I oppose the intent, it's the wording, I just feel like I need to say that.
Okay. Almost there.
Okay,
Senate
next
Bill,
bill is Senate Bill 533, relative to physical quorums at public meetings. This bill would allow for one or more members of the public body to participate by electronic means and still count toward the quorum.
don't we already have some person
I don't think it would follow.
there?
Staff is not recommending a position because we figured y'all would establish that.
I will make a motion to oppose Senate Bill 533. Can I have a second to speak to my motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I know it sounds like a broken record, but I'm a show-up person, not a sign-up person, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Question.
Call question. All those in favor of opposing Senate Bill 533, please say aye. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is SB 533. Oh, no, that can't be right.
548.
Sorry, 548.
No,
544.
544. LSR 3078, replacing the rear seal system with a confirmation number.
Yeah, that's ours.
544.
There's a duplicate.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So what one are
So we have a,
Senate Bill 544, that's ours, replacing.
Yeah, we just
the-
don't have a copy of it, that's all.
No, okay. Sorry about that. Replacing the gear seal system with a confirmation number system. Y'all have seen it.
Yeah, it's ours.
It's ours.
I make a motion to support Senate Bill 544.
I'll second it.
I'll call a question. All those in favor say aye. It's our bill.
I know, but I like to read it.
We read it at the meeting in October.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
It's housekeeping to clean up the requirement to have a registration sealed,
Next
where
one.
we don't do that anymore.
Instead of
Senate Bill 548.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, removes gray squirrels from the definition of game animals.
Did we vote on 544 or what's happening?
Yeah, we just did,
Yes.
5-0. You grunted.
Okay,
I heard
fine.
you.
I think I was.
So staff is recommending opposed to this because
I make a motion to oppose
I
548.
second.
as with the seasons on coyotes, we think that any season management or anything with.
We're aligned, Mark.
Yeah, we're with you. All those in favor of opposing Senate Bill 548, please say aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is 549, SB 549, relative to procedures for inspection and transfer of dams and establishing a committee to study alternatives for the funding, operation, maintenance, and repair of state-owned dams. It modifies the dam inspection authority for DES and allows them to transfer revenue into a dam maintenance fund, and they can do loans from that. And it also establishes a committee to study alternatives for the funding. The department wants to monitor this.
It's just, once again, just want to make sure the commission's aware that we do have, there's 3 of these dam bills in the state, in the legislative session this year. At this time, I'm not recommending that we take a position, but I just wanted to make sure that the commission was aware of it.
Thank you.
I have one question for the director.
Oh, wait.
Uh-oh.
I have to, I'll make a motion to support.
I'll second it.
What is the motion?
To support, just for purposes of discussion.
I'm not on the committee.
Oh, that's right, you're on the committee, sorry. All right, moving on. Does anybody want to vote on it? Going once, going twice, thank you.
So,
One last one.
okay, the last one is HB 1697, suspending New Hampshire's participation in emissions reduction credit programs for a period of 2 years. So this bill would tell DES to suspend the program for 2 years. And the staff is recommending oppose.
I make a motion to oppose House Bill 1697.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Why are we taking a position on this one?
It's back to the carbon credits and related to emissions and carbon credits you get for those emissions. I believe the utilities are probably the biggest one out of those right now. But
Basically the same reason we were in the other one. This carbon credit, I'm not saying that we don't need some thought, some legislative thought on this carbon credit issue, but we do need to be a little careful as we proceed that we don't end up with a negative impact on habitat and on sportsman access. So a 2-year moratorium would mean that if somebody wouldn't be able to sell carbon credits for 2 years.
I'll call a question. All those in favor of opposing House Bill 1697, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for all the confusion and the oversight.
No, it's okay.
It happens when I'm trying